We will not stand by while others mischaracterize or completely misrepresent the church's long-term efforts and commitment. Nor will we tolerate the Associated Press or any other media to make such gross errors on the details of such a tragic and horrific incident as what occurred in Arizona. We are constantly striving to be better and do more, and we invite others to join us in such efforts.
Dude.
I have never seen the church talk like that ever.
Wow.
Dude, I guess you finally know where their breaking point is. Somebody grew a spine in the COB. So, wow.
That's wild. I've never seen that.
Welcome back to Midnight Mormons, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Cardinellis, and today I'm joined in the studio by Brad Whitbeck and Kwaku L. And we are going to give our response to the Bisbee, Arizona scandal. A lot of you guys have asked for our opinions on such, so we're going to give our thoughts on this subject. Who wants to go first? Kwaku, Brad? Or I'm not going first. I'm going last. What do you want to do? Brad, you go.
Sure.
Well-measured, diplomatic Brad, go.
Basically, this is a situation that sucks. It's a horrible, horrible situation no matter how you cut it. There was a horrible years of abuse that never should have been able to happen, right? I was really bothered by this case, so I looked into it and got into some of the court documents and transcripts and stuff to try to understand what really happened. And it's super dark. It's horrible, everything that happened. I think that from my understanding of it, it's basically something where this helpline that the church has is normally there to help people. And what we're seeing is an instance of when that failed. You know, that's my reading of the situation from when I look at the FBI agent talking about his conversation with the bishop, because we don't have actual transcripts for what the bishop's confession looked like from the abuser. The guy who committed the abuse is dead now, so we don't have any of his actual words on anything. The wife didn't really do much speaking. I at least didn't see a transcript for her. I don't know if she spoke at all at her trial. And so it's something where we have very minimal information on what actually happened. And then you have the Associated Press having their article talking about all of these pages of documents that they have that is leading them to believe something. But what worries me is that the Associated Press might be making this something that it's not, because this is the same guy who did the reporting on the Catholic priests who were basically being shuffled around to different places when it turned out they were doing something wrong. And this is, to me, this seems like a wildly different situation. But I mean, they have access to more documents that we haven't seen. I'm under the impression that the helpline is there to help the victims. That's what the church's actual handbook says.
Or to help the leaders that are trying to help the victims.
Well,
make sure they do it in a correct
and even
way.
To help the victims. Like, it's part of what the helpline is there for, is to help make sure that the victims are taken care of. And because laws are different through different states and everything, right, all throughout, they've got to have some way for bishops to know how things work. Maybe there's a better way to do it by making it so that it's just you report no matter what, and if you get sued, the church will help you out, right? Like, maybe that's the policy that they need to adopt. I don't know what it needs to look like, but I don't know. I cannot believe that the bishop could have known the details of the case that were exposed in the actual court depositions, right? That as people were speaking in court, I can't believe he would actually have known all of those details and still not have turned him in, you know?
Yeah.
And so I wonder what his confession actually looked like.
And this is also where it gets frustrating on doing this on YouTube, because as an entertainment show that generally focuses on current events and responding to anti-Mormon lies about us or about the organizations we participate in and so on and so forth. We have to use really neutered language and very euphemistic terms, and we kind of have to search for this wishy-washy way of saying something heinous in a euphemistic way that won't get this conversation flagged. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like you want to dive into details, and I think a lot of people tune into the show because they appreciate that we do that. But when it's something this dark, something this bad, it's like you literally just can't, or else it's just taken off. You know what I'm saying?
And it's all complicated too, because you have some reports from the church coming out saying that by Arizona law, he wasn't allowed to report, you know?
Yeah.
And looking into the Arizona law, I'm not positive that that's true. I'm not a lawyer. I got a theater degree, so I'm sure there's something I don't understand.
Well, and
that,
the thing
right?
is, I don't know how you feel, but it's like, I don't believe the people that are making these accusations because I've seen them way too many times lie. I've seen them just way too many times lie and say like, oh, the Mormon church hides this, or else, oh, they have. It's just like, no, I know you're lying. You're trying to make this something that it's not, because you always try and piggyback off of other people's grief. And this really bothers me, because in the whole investigation I've done into this affair, yeah, I think somebody dropped the ball somewhere. I mean, and that's the euphemistic term that we have to use on this platform, right? But it's not everything that was written by Jana Reese on the articles. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know. Here, it's your turn. You say your piece.
I just think it is absolutely horrible that that girl had to go through what she did for as long as she did. I think that it's very clear to me that the church's stance is against allowing that to happen. I think that the narrative that the church is allowing this to try to hide its reputation, that doesn't hold water for me.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem cohesive with any of my experience within the church. And here, to me, it seems like an instance of a failure of a system that is normally there to protect people, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just so sorry that she had to go through what she did for so long, you know?
Yeah.
It's absolutely horrible.
All right, Quaker, what do you think?
So I think, like, if you look at the situation, it feels like, okay, this sounds sort of weird. It feels like ex-Mormons want this to be like the Catholic Church spotlight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what they want it to be.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not like, I didn't read the 25,000 page like report, and nobody else did either. So it's like none of them read it. None of us. We got through 25,000 pages in a week. Like, there's no way, right?
Yeah.
So, but what it seems like is that they want this to be worse. They want this to be the giant scandal where thousands of children are being. Now, I only say that because I'm literally seeing their tweets which say like, we're just as bad as or the LDS Church is just as bad as the Catholic Church. Which to me is very strange, because you wanting it to be that bad also means, in a weird roundabout way, you're like excited at the fact that there could be thousands of more children being.
Yeah.
Like, and it just shows the
Right.
depth of it's worse than Trump derangement syndrome.
Yeah,
it's straight up psychosis.
It's like one of the darkest things ever. 2, this report was about, like, you hate to say it, this report was not thousands of children. This report was not hundreds of children. Okay, 1 is horrible. No one's doubting that. But like you said, I don't really trust the way the narrative is being pushed, because they're pushing this one story as if it's thousands.
And it almost feels like they're making it purposely like misleading in the way that they worded things in their article. They say that they have 12,000 pages of documents about the helpline. And then in another part of when you read further down, it's like, yeah, these 12,000 pages from one other case in West Virginia.
Yeah, and the first 11,500 are probably just the terms and conditions that you agree to before you call them.
Yeah,
like,
it makes it sound like there's 12,000 other cases, you know,
Yeah.
Right.
where who knows how many that represents, you know?
Right. Yeah. So, and by the way, if the number if the number was extremely high, that number would be published everywhere.
Yeah.
They would not be saying 12,000 pages. They would be saying 9,000 LDS children were, like, that's what they would say, 100%.
And any number of children affected by this is a tragedy.
It reminds me of when in 2016, you remember when Trump was initially running and there was all this talk that he had, like, there was a video of him, like, doing a on a hooker from Russia. Do you remember that? Like the PP
I never
tape?
heard that accusation.
It went
but
viral.
okay.
They were like, there's a PP tape. There's a tape of Trump, like, doing weird stuff with a Russian. I'm like,
Okay.
no, there's not. You would have released it. That would have, second you found it, that would have been everywhere.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so it's like that. It's one of those things it was too good to be true for the people who didn't like him.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at it in a similar way of that number, the number of children that in that report, if you had thousands of children or even hundreds, it would be released. It would have been, that would have been the Salt Lake Tribune headline. So in the lack of transparency, there's a hopeful manipulation that people will think it's something it's not. Also, like you said, I don't trust these people. I don't trust that Jana Reese is going to tell the truth. I don't trust, and let me also say, the reason I don't trust them doesn't really have anything to do with the fact that I'm LDS. Like, just from a journalistic perspective, anyone can tell this is not the same thing.
Yeah.
Second, the Spotlight stuff had everybody talking about it. Everybody, Mormon, Muslim, Jewish, everyone was talking about, like, oh, wait. Up to the Vatican and the cardinals, they were aware that priests were children, and they weren't calling the police. They were moving those priests to different parts of the country and the world to protect them and keep them in leadership. If it ever came out that President Hinckley and Elder Monson were doing that, and it was a seminary teacher in Idaho, children, so they said, we're just going to move him to Gilbert, Arizona.
Yeah.
They're going to move him to Spanish Fork, Utah.
Mm-hmm.
If that was coming out, I would probably leave the church. Okay?
Yeah.
If that was coming out. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is you had a bishop who is volunteer. We have a volunteer lay ministry, and the laws in Arizona are just not up to snuff enough, and things like this, unfortunately, will fall through the cracks. And I'm not excusing it, but what I'm saying is it's not what they're making it out to be.
Yeah.
And
They're making it seem like it's a scandal of covering up to cover for the reputation of the church.
Yes.
Where it seems like it's a lot more likely it's a failure either on the part of the bishop, maybe the helpline, or maybe even the way Arizona law is
Well, you say
currently
Arizona
written.
laws
And
aren't
props
up
all
to
three.
snuff. I read, and there's 2 laws, and I could see how a common person trying to interpret them in good faith would be confused. Because one says that clergy is not responsible for the reporting of these crimes, and then the other one, there's kind of insinuation that you are, and another one there's insinuation that you're not. But apparently, according to the testimony of one of the individuals in the case, he was encouraged saying, you can't do it, but the victim's family should. And so he tries and tells the victim's family to do it. And it gets really Byzantine really fast in a way where it's very easy to play fast and loose with some really heinous accusations.
Right.
And the thing I'm getting tired of is every single time one of these hit pieces come out, whether it's Under the Banner of Heaven or whether it's the AP article or whatever, they always take some heinous crime committed by a mentally ill person, okay, that had been dealt with in good faith to the nth degree by the church until finally the church excommunicates them and says, dude, you gotta go. Like, you gotta go. Whether it was the murderers and Under a Banner of Heaven, you know, claiming that they're like their own prophets and that they're not subject to laws and,
Right.
you know, they don't have to pay their taxes and all this psycho stuff. Like, what more could the church have done other than say, you can no longer be here? And short of committing a crime we can call the cops for, like, you got to go, you're stripped of your membership, you have no access to any of our more people resources or whatever. And then all of these Exmos, the same Exmos making these claims right now, all of a sudden are consultants on a project trying to make it into some kind of state-sponsored murder, right?
Right.
Well, now, like, this is the very first thing I noticed. The very first article I pop about this, written by person named Jana Reese. She rings a bell. I've read a couple of her other things,
Yeah,
but
she was friends with the pedophile, right?
yeah, like, you guys remember when Tom Kimball
Yeah.
was
geez, yeah.
totally caught being a horrible, I can't even say the word on screen, but it's comparable to literally what we're talking right now. And she writes this beautiful soliloquy saying suicide, complicated grief, and the hidden darkness of the heart, because one of her friends got caught abusing children in a way that deserves a millstone, shall we say? Okay.
Yeah, and this was not just her friend. This was someone prominent in the ex-Mormon and progressive Mormon circle.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like literally the Epstein of ex-Mormonism. There's photos of him
With
hanging
other
out with
people.
all the big ex-Mos, John DeLynn, Lindsay Hansen Park, you name it. And when this guy died, they were writing eulogies about, complicated person. No, it's
It's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah,
If
the guy was
any
a
of
pedo.
you were to harm one of these, it is better that a millstone be hung around his neck.
But you know what?
That's simple.
Mm-hmm.
There was they were trying as nicely as they could to express that he did something wrong, but he was still a good person.
Yeah.
So that makes me take a step back and go, wait. It's very unfortunate that this is how the ex-Mormon podcasters with their platforms, this is how they see it. They see it as an opportunity to attack the church with a bludgeon they think is heavier. But when that thing is happening in their own house, they don't really care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And where's their helpline?
Yeah.
To help the victims that are actually being harmed by
Well,
this.
remember what Corbin Valuz said, Radio Free Mormon. He said, "I'm not my brother's keeper." So they don't really have it. They don't care.
Mm-hmm.
You see it all the time on their posts. Whenever people ask them, "Well, what about your moral standards?" They say, "I don't care. I don't have to have them. I'm not a Mormon."
Well,
you guys have to.
this is what
So-
bothers me. Let me finish. I just want to finish showing this to our audience. When the anti-Mormon, friend of John DeLynn and friend of Jana Reese, gets caught abusing children in a heinous way, it is, quote, suicide, complicated grief, and the hidden darkness of the soul, with a tagline that says, "Do we ever truly know people?" And a glowing picture of her smiling next to a certified bona fide abuser of his own children. Okay? Saying Tom Kimball, a fixture in the Mormon studies community, took his life yesterday. It doesn't say a vapid anti-Mormon. No, a fixture in the Mormon studies community. I'm speechless, essentially, and it feels like a triple shock. There's the sudden death, the fact it was suicide, and, quote, the additional bombshell that Tom apparently had been accused of abuse. Oh, yeah, he was just kicking his dog. Accused of abuse. What?
He yelled at his wife. He kicked his dog. That's not. Yeah. No.
Oh, no, it's just euphemistic abuse. Then all of a sudden, less than 3 years later, how Mormons are addressing abuse. Too little, too late. Latter-day Saints have the opportunity to learn from others' mistakes, but will we? Others' mistakes like who? Your bestie that you're taking pictures with only 18 months ago, 24 months ago? You know what I'm saying? John DeLynn and Lindsay Hansen Park's bestie that they're all taking pictures with? You know what I'm saying? You got the Jeffrey Epstein of the anti-Mormon community here getting caught, and they're literally writing him a eulogy as though he's some austere religious scholar. You know what I'm saying?
I can't think of any eulogies any Mormons wrote about this file dad in Arizona.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we were like, F him.
Yeah, like
Because
everybody's literally
collectively we're like, yeah, that guy sucks.
Yeah.
You know, if we need to a millstone so that he atones for this and can stand, a little bit better in front of God, fine. Anybody got a millstone?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I didn't see one LDS person. Well, this is a complicated situation because he loved it. No, we said this guy is evil.
Yep.
And right now we're upset at the state and the bishop because we want to make sure this doesn't happen again. There was no downplaying and there was no, oh, well, he was a good friend. No. So you look at the two different versions of how we handle this and how they handle it.
Yeah.
And
it's
I'm
so clear that nobody thinks this guy is anything other than a monster.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and then, but
I would say demon, but that's okay.
Yeah,
You know,
yes.
different phrasing, yes.
well, and then you go back in the next article she writes, saying, oh, it's too little too late. This is the opening paragraph. Like many people, I was disgusted to read the Associated Press's investigative talk about 2 Arizona bishops of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, how they failed to report a horrific case of one father's, and they get specific now, as abuse in this decision guided by the helpline for bishops set up to answer questions about this specific type of abuse. So she goes guns blazing when it's not her boy. You know what I'm saying? So I just get tired of being told that I'm part of a problem, and that since I don't hate myself and my faith, that I'm part of the problem, and that they're giving the reality of the story. And if I look into this and say like, yeah, it's not the way you said it, I think it's a horrible person that needs to be charged with a heinous crime. All of a sudden, oh, you're a bad person. Oh, but they got it figured out over there. And they act like they care. These people don't give a crap about kids or about abuse. If they gave a crap about abuse, they would have an Exmo helpline right now, calling 2 times, asking, why is John Dehlin taking multiple pictures with an accused abuser of his own children? And how did that go in your community? A decade undetected,
When, by the way, you're a therapist.
Yeah.
You're the person who looks for these signs to tell people how to break away from abusive and toxic relationships. And one of your buddies is a child. So, I mean.
Yeah. And then it's like, and you say like, okay, Mormon Church excommunicates this guy. They try and navigate a bunch of Byzantine laws. Somebody obviously dropped a ball here. Either a bonehead in the helpline, some dude, hopefully he was new there and had some excuse, did not either dig deep enough, hard enough, or understand the law well enough to be qualified for his position and gave bad advice. Or the bishop ignored it. Right now, I'm not thinking the bishop ignored it. Seems like the bishop kind of did his best to call up to the helpline, do what the helpline recommended. The helpline says, look, you got to try and have the family confess. There's mental illness in the family and one of the women is in jail. So
dude.
What?
The church literally just now issued an official statement about this.
Oh, okay. Want to read it?
I just
Holy
sent
crap.
it to you in the Discord.
Whoa, this is real time.
Whoa,
That's
this
crazy.
is like super meta. Holy crap. Okay, so here we go in the Discord.
Just so we can document this, true. 5:53 p.m. 8/17/2022 Pacific Standard Time.
Wait, say that again. Hold on. I got to see what camera you're on. There you go.
Yeah, as we're recording this, it's 5:53 p.m. August 17th, 2022 Pacific Standard Time in Los Angeles.
Okay, so here's the official statement from.
Did it just come out?
Yeah,
I just saw it
right here. So church
Yeah,
provides
wow.
further details about the Arizona abuse case. Church outlines its feelings on abuse and how a recent Associated Press story got it wrong. For generations, leaders of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints have spoken in the strongest of terms about the evils of abuse and need to care for those who are victims of survivors of abuse. From the thundering rebuke of former President Gordon B. Hinckley to the recent words of healing offered by Elder Patrick Kieran of the Presidency of the 70, our feelings are clear. We echo those sentiments and teachings today. Our hearts are broken as we learn of any abuse. It cannot be tolerated. It cannot be excused. The Savior Jesus Christ wants us to all do better and be better. If anybody else wants to read this too, by the way, you can jump in.
It is important to us that our members and friends understand how deeply we feel about this subject. It is also important that they have accurate information about how we approach this matter. Church leaders and members are instructed in the church's general handbook that their responsibilities related to abuse are as follows. 1. Assure that child abuse is stopped. 2. Help victims receive care, including from professional counselors. And 3. Comply with whatever reporting is required by law. Since the church released its first statement about the Associated Press story, many have wondered about what was incorrect or mischaracterized in their reporting. The information and details below are provided to help media members and others understand how the church approaches this topic of child abuse, particularly as it relates to the specific case.
What did the Associated Press story get wrong? The AP story has significant flaws in its facts and timeline, which led to erroneous conclusions. We are puzzled as to why or how a media source as respected as the Associated Press would make such egregious errors in reporting and editing. Ooh, can you scroll down? Carter?
Yeah, that was pretty savage.
Each of the facts below is contained in public filings in the pending case and is taken from the sworn testimony of Lisa Adams, the mother of the victims. The Associated Press was directed to those filings prior to the publication of their first story, but they chose not to include any of them. Those filings, accessible and shared with the Associated Press, are the source of the following facts. In late 2011, Paul Adams made a limited confession to his bishop about a single past incident of abuse of one child. The bishop then called the helpline, where he was advised how to fully comply with Arizona's reporting laws. In compliance with that counsel, from the time forward, the bishop repeatedly tried to intervene and encourage reporting, including by counseling Paul Adams to repent and seek professional help, asking Paul Adams to report, he refused, also refused to give permission to the bishop to make the report, encouraging Paul Adams' wife, Lisa, to report, she refused and later served time in prison for her role, encouraging Paul Adams to move out of the home, which he did temporarily, urging Lisa to seek professional counseling for Paul and their children who would trigger a mandatory report. They refused. In 2013, Adams was excommunicated for his behavior and lost his membership in the church. Prior to and after his limited confession, Paul rarely attended church or talked to leaders. It wasn't until 2017, nearly 4 years later, that church leaders learned from media reports the extent of the abuse, that the abuse had continued, and that it involved a second victim born after Paul's excommunication. The AP story ignores this timeline and sequence of events and implies that all of the facts were known by a bishop as early as 2011, a clearly erroneous conclusion.
Okay, and then it continues here. This is really interesting.
I've never, by the way, seen the church actually like call someone out or defend itself.
I've
never seen a church do this.
And here they are.
It's like all of a sudden the church office building decides to grow a spine. I guess we know.
Because they're at least helping people understand what actually happened.
Yeah.
That's the part that bugged me the most about the article, was how far, like, just like they're saying here, they don't mention any of these things.
Yeah.
I had to look into actual court records to see that any of that stuff happened and understand what happened with this timeline.
Yeah, I'm going to read the rest, just finish this off so we can get this out here. I actually want to publish this soon. But it says, the suggestion that the helpline is used to, quote, cover up abuse is completely false. They continue to say, the church's abuse helpline has everything to do with protecting children. It has nothing to do with cover up. It has been in existence for more than a quarter of a century. Its purpose is to, 1, comply with the various laws of child abuse reporting in all 50 states and the provinces of Canada, ministering to the needs of victims and their families where we can while reporting abuse consistent with the law. 2, to encourage victims, family members, and perpetrators to seek professional counseling or report abuse to the authorities themselves. 3, to direct report, and there's actually a lot of states, even in the US, that have, because of the Catholic Church seal of confession, where, and it's not just the Catholic Church, there's some evangelical churches that take the confession to elders so seriously that you're not like you could get in ecclesiastical trouble in their faith. That's not in our faith.
And even beyond ecclesiastical trouble, you're literally in the Catholic faith excommunicated from the Holy Spirit the moment you break the seal of confession. It's not just the church does this. It's like the Spirit leaves you.
Yeah, so there's some religious protection laws that we don't necessarily espouse ourselves, but some governments espouse that we don't necessarily agree with, but exist, in which the only thing you are able to do, if you are a member of that faith, not ours, okay, is to encourage the congregant to self-confess, which is heinous and part of the problem, that reason why here in LA, everybody was so angry in Boston and Los Angeles about the Catholic abuse scandals. But let me finish what our church had to say. They said 3, to directly report the abuse to authorities. This is the purpose of the helpline, that is, to directly report the abuse to authorities, regardless of legal exemptions from reporting requirements when it is known that a child is in imminent danger. The helpline routinely reports cases of child abuse to authorities. Outside experts who are aware of the helpline have regularly praised it. That's a very important thing to say. Even when a report is not required or is even prohibited by law, because confession is, quote, owned by the confessor, interesting, the helpline encourages leaders to pursue ways to ensure these 3 goals are met. Those who serve the helpline are parents and grandparents themselves and include former government child abuse investigators and child abuse prosecutors. Some of them are themselves survivors of abuse. The notion that there would be any incentive on their part to cover up child abuse is absolutely absurd. Brad, why don't you take the conclusion?
We strive to follow the teachings of Jesus Christ, who spoke powerfully and repeatedly about the precious value of children and condemned those who would mistreat them. These are the ideals that characterize our understanding and approach to the issue of child abuse. What happened to the Adams children in Arizona at the hands of their parents is sickening, heartbreaking, and inexcusable. The church has issued a strong response because this is a topic where there can be no mincing of words, no hint of apathy, and no tolerance for any suggestion that we are neglectful or not doing enough on the issue of child abuse. It is a matter that strikes at our hearts and is so deeply offensive to everything that we value. We will not stand by while others mischaracterize or completely misrepresent the church's long-term efforts and commitment. Nor will we tolerate the Associated Press or any other media to make such gross errors on the details of such a tragic and horrific incident as what occurred in Arizona. We are constantly striving to be better and do more, and we invite others to join us in such efforts.
Dude.
I have never seen the church talk like that ever.
Wow.
Dude, I guess you finally know where their breaking point is. Somebody grew a spine in the COB. So, wow.
That's wild. I've never seen that ever.
Uh-huh. And then quotes from President Hinckley and Patrick Kieran's talk.
Yeah, where it literally says, it is unnecessary, it is unjustified, it is indefensible. Countless members of children cry out in fear and loneliness from the evil consequences of moral transgression, neglect, and abuse. I speak plainly, perhaps indelicately, but I know of no other way to make clear a matter about which I feel so strongly. There is a terrible, inexcusable, and evil phenomenon of physical and sexual abuse. There is the terrible, vicious practice of sexual abuse. It is beyond understanding. It is an affront to the decency and ought to exist that ought to exist in every man and woman. It is a violation of that which is sacred and divine. It is destructive of the lives of children. It is reprehensible and worthy of the most severe condemnation. I mean, you literally cannot get any more clear cut and defined at that. And actually, I feel very justified here that a lot of our emotional kind of
just our reactions.
Our reactions of like, yeah, this is garbage. What these people are saying happened is the weaponization of they are
of a tragedy.
Yeah, they are trafficking in human tragedy and misery right now for their petty self-gain. And I'm talking about you, all you anti-Mormons, in every single one of these pictures with a person who was convicted of the exact same crimes. And you said absolutely nothing. You wrote nothing but soliloquies. You are bad people. Full stop. So we got to go on our live stream now. And I'm freaking pissed off and riled up at these people. But any last words we want to say before we go?
No, I'm sending this article right now to all the people I know who want to see it. So
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
Cool. Well, this is Midnight Mormons. See you in the next program.